everyone, this is Paul Casey with the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame educational video series where we talk to our members of the Hall of Fame. And today our special guest is Senior Master of the Arts, Mr. Paul Dye. Paul, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
It's good to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. Mr. Dye, how long have you been in the martial arts?
We're looking at 47 and a half years right now.
Good Lord. And how long have you been married?
47 and a half years. About the same amount of time.
That's wonderful. See? Tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get involved in the martial arts, and what particular styles did you study?
I got involved in the martial arts kind of by accident. Wasn't really looking to join any certain system style. It was at college. Walked by a gymnasium, poked my head in, they grabbed me and told me to stand up, and there you go. We've been doing karate ever since.
Was it always Kenpo?
Always Kenpo. Haven't done anything else.
Okay. Who was your first instructors?
It was Dave Hebler, and second instructor was Jim Thompson. Dave Hebler was the first instructor. Jim Thompson was the second instructor.
Was it always in Southern California?
Always Southern California, Glendora.
Okay, Glendora. Okay. Tell us about when you were trained over there in
Glendora and Covina.
Okay. How long did you train in those schools?
Mr. Hebler's school was about a year and a quarter. And then that's when he got the call from Elvis and he had to close the studio.
Okay. And then you went over to Covina?
Actually, what transpired is Mr. Rainey and I threw the system on our own. We kind of taught each other.
I see. How long did you work out with AC Rainey?
That was probably 2 years, 7 days a week, no days off, about 15 hours a day.
When did you become a black belt?
Black belt was the fall of 1974.
And in your time as a black belt, I mean, how many students have you actually worked with over the years?
At home, probably a couple hundred. On the road, teaching on the road, probably a couple thousand.
Any particular students stand out in your mind?
Actually, probably all the students I've had in the garage, I probably remember most of them. So all of those students are very important to me.
I mean, did any of them, like,
hello, Bob.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, did you have any that really accelerated in and that you've instructed over the years and gone on to do things they're very proud of?
We have several that have gone on to teach and carry on our lineage. Dave Thompson has been with me since 1973. He's had students that have become black belts that actually teach out of their homes. All connected. It's all homegrown. Everybody still teaches in their house. So we're pretty proud of that.
And in coming up in your years of the of training in martial arts, you went on to do competition. When was the first time you competed? Do you remember that? How was the experience? What were some of the highlights of your competition days?
The most important part of the competition is kind of a strange story, to tell you the truth. At the Long Beach IKC at the arena, probably even maybe 1982, me and Patty were out in the parking lot taking a break from refereeing on the inside, and we were approached in the parking lot by Mr. Parker. And he came up to both of us and he asked me a question. The question was, or he said he had an idea. And we said, what's your idea? He goes, I want to make what we do a competition. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I want to have the self-defense program be a competition. And he goes, I want you to make it work. He goes, I think you can make it work. So I go, when do you think that's going to happen? He goes, next year that will happen. So I took a year to think about what he said, and it was going to be very important to him. So in the year getting ready for the IKC, me and some of my black belts, we took it as serious as we could. And not only did we want it to make it work for him, we wanted to make it work for the rest of all time. We wanted it to become a solid, justified competition. So all the competitive work prior to that wasn't nearly as important as what was coming up. And me and my team put the routines that we came up with, we took 10 months to prepare them. We went over them 3 or 4 days a week. We filmed them, critiqued them. Competition was at hand. We were ready to go.
What was the criteria?
The criteria at that time was the very, very simple, do a technique for a grab, a punch, and a kick. But I knew he wanted more than that. So we just incorporated everything into 3 to 4 separate routines that basically try to encompass everything that we do. So and of course, tournaments now still have self-defense in it. So yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. I obviously was from a Kenpo background, but what other systems were involved, or did other styles and systems participate?
It took in the infancy, it was basically just Ed Parker Kenpoist. And then as the years kind of unfolded, some of the other systems started to come into it, which was fine with me. It actually motivated me. And then weapons came into it, that motivated me. And then we were opened up to grand championships, which it motivated me even more, because at that time period, tournament competition, at least in Southern California, was a really big thing. Mr. White knows me, it was a really big thing. So all we wanted was a chance to compete against the state-rated forms competitors. And we finally were able to do that, and we were successful at that, and we were very, very happy with that.
Well, over some of the highlights of that competition over the years, I mean, there must have been some incredible exhibitions and competitors and that might have stood out to you.
The very first year, there was a lot of the first and second generation Kenpoists on stage that day. As the years kind of moved forward, I guess it would be the generation behind me that followed, came onto the scene. And by then, competition-wise, we were kind of refereeing it to the kids. It was a really, really cool thing. As far as the competitions themselves, all great. Great memories. Anytime you were on stage at the IKC, whether champ, I don't think anybody that was not on that stage will forget those memories. I mean, it was a really cool thing. Dark arena, the spotlights are on you. It was a really cool thing. Really.
Was it
really
limited?
Nice.
Was it limited just to the actual execution of the self-defense, or was there any theatrics or production that was involved with the performance?
It was just karate by itself. Pretty plain, pretty simple, straightforward. No production, no theatrics, just people getting hit.
Because the reason I say that is that a lot of the competition now has evolved where we actually have showmanship type of divisions. So this was probably the forerunner to what we're seeing today, with multiple attacks, and they would use music and some kind of theatrics. We've seen that. I'm just curious if that ever was utilized in the self-defense division.
Not in the self-defense that I know of. That was all the showmanship and the forms people. They were allowed to use the music, the props, and whatnot. we were just limited to the straight Ed Parker weaponry, the knives, the guns, you know, the clubs, you know, those type of things. Pretty straightforward.
Did you ever go outside of the Southern California area to compete in those kind of competitions as well?
Yeah, I did. Matter of fact, when you're a competitor, there's you have personal goals and personal things you want to achieve. And at that time, as far as Southern California went, we wanted to go outside the state. So of course we started going to different states to compete, which was kind of fun because nobody actually knew who I was. They didn't know who my people were. So we were kind of unknown people. You know, so that was kind of fun. Matter of fact, we went to compete in a different state and Ed Parker walked in. I mean, that was pretty funny. It's like, he goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm going to do what you told me to do and do your stuff." So that was a trip.
Did Mr. Parker ever give you any guidance or, you know, direction on how that should be presented?
No. I think deep down, he was confident. I mean, he knew, and you know, there was no way I was going to let him down whatsoever. So we were ready to go.
In your time of doing, did you ever go and do any demos with Mr. Parker or involved with any of the demonstrations on center stage?
Not with him, but me and Patty were just kind of backseat. We were married in 1974, and what he did for us, he gave us front row seats to the IKC for the finals. So on our left, on our right was Bill Riosaki. Behind us was Mike Stone. At 6:30 was Joe Lewis and Chuck Norris. So we were kind of out of place. And the next thing you know, he grabs the microphone and he tells me and Patty to go on stage and do a little handshake that we came up with. We had no notice, no warning, no nothing. Broom, karate handshake. So that was kind of a trip.
Do you still know that handshake?
No.
Good answer,
No,
Paul.
actually, I wish I did. It was really cool.
Good answer. And I was leading you down that path. You were helping me. Okay. So let's move on. Did you always compete at the IKC?
I competed at IKC, I think it was 4 years. 4 years there, and then about 70 times outside of the IKC. Probably is about right. But at the IKC, I wanted other people to come in and had done. Actually, Dave Thompson came in, and he probably went 6 years in a row undefeated there, which was kind of cool. So,
how about you as a competitor in fighting?
Actually, my first the first competition fighting was actually the IKC in '73. I was a blue belt, and I drew about 4 BKF guys in a row. And of course, I trained with AC, and of course I had AC in my corner, and those guys were kind of dumbfounded. But anytime you fought there it was cool. We had a real good time fighting up north at the California Championships, Mr. Castro's tournament. We fought there as team brown belts. That was cool. Mm-hmm. At the IKC as black, never really jumped in that one because I was kind of involved with what I was doing with the self-defense. So I was kind of focused on that.
Ask you a question. During the 70s, I guess the late 70s and 80s and 90s, very flamboyant time for martial artists from traditional attire and such. But you're well known for wearing the red pants, correct?
You're gonna do it, aren't you? Yeah,
yes, I am. Because you did that to me back in '81. Okay. I love you, man. Come on. Give it up. We got to show the photos
I
later.
know.
So when they're in the video, they're going to see it anyway. What the heck? The
We
famed
got
red
red
pants.
red tops. Hey, there you go.
Yes.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, I knew it. And you know what the thing is, though, for our viewers, you know, Paul's talent is unquestionable. What made him really stand out initially is that he had the confidence to walk into the ring with that uniform and he could back it up. And that really showcased him. So later on now, we're talking to him now. And honestly, you are one of Mr. Trejo's favorite people ever. And as you know, I told you this before, for those of you that don't know the story, when the first Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame was created, about 9 months before we were going to do it, I asked Frank and shared with him how it was going to go about. And he personally chose the first 10 people inducted into the Hall of Fame because they impressed him. And some of them were questionable, and some were he admired a lot, and some were the ones he thought just stood out. And Mr. Dye, you were one of them. So that is why I bring that up. And so while we're on the subject, why don't you talk about, you sat on Mr. Trejo's black belt test. Am I correct?
I did.
Yeah, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, the testing boards at that time were definitely not as big as they are now. There was probably 6 or 7 of us. You know, by then, you know, everybody kind of had an idea how the test was going to go. And there were a couple highlights of the test, you know, Frank being, you know, definitely one of the highlights of the test. We were just kind of waiting for the fighting part at the end because you know, Frank loved to fight. So we knew what was going to happen. And everything was good for him. Wasn't so good for the other guys. It was great for him.
Who else was on the test that day? If you remember. Anybody notable?
Yeah. Larry Tatum tested the same day. But as far as any other than those two, I can't remember.
Well, you picked two guys that
they tested together.
You picked two guys that have made a lasting impression on Kenpo Karate. There's no doubt about that. And,
oh yeah, for sure.
And then Frank went on to, you know, you know, as you know, he came up through the system through the instructors program. I think he's the only guy that ever did it and complete. Went into Montebello, and then after he tested with you and in front of Mr. Parker and the rest of the board, he came over to Pasadena to run the school. Did you ever spend any time with Trejo working out with him in Pasadena?
Yeah, I did. Working out and doing other things, throwing down a couple, if you know what I'm saying.
You mean
actually Frank came here quite a few times.
You mean throwing people or something else?
Well, actually both.
Well, you know, after the Friday night classes, we had a tendency to go down to Shakey's, but there was also Acapulco down the street too. So don't worry, I'll edit this out of the interview later, just to save us all. All righty. So did you spend a lot of time asking him to come and participate in? You were throwing on tournaments yourself.
See, I supported his tournaments, is what it is. He's the one that was throwing the tournaments, and then our students were supporting him, but it was his tournaments.
So let's talk about some of the more notable martial arts Kenpoists that you ever got a chance to train with or study with or watch working. Anybody stand out in particular to you?
That's a hard question. I mean, that's like
okay, I'll just drop names.
Of greatness.
Yeah, I'll just drop names and you can give us a response. How about Tom Kelly?
Got to see Tom Kelly fight, man. Yeah, up at the California Championships. Me and AC were fighting brown belt division. We got done with our division. And actually, I remember telling Patty, I go, wouldn't it be really cool if Tom Kelly fought as a joke? It wasn't a joke. He came out and won the whole thing. It was awesome.
He was devastating. Awesome. Yeah. He had
You just, to watch the man, yeah, just so fast for being so big. It was incredible. And the first guy he fought, he kicked him right in the face. It's like, holy cow. It was incredible. Incredible.
Well, Mr. Kelly was a big man, so that was probably just a midsection kick, right? For him.
Unbelievable. We're like 20 feet from that, if even closer than that. And when you're that close and you see that, and you see, remember, you got to remember the guy he's fighting is 240 pounds, and this guy dropped like a sack. But you know, it's like he was actually a very nice person. It's like just a nice, humble guy, you know. But if if there's something going down, you definitely wanted Tom in your corner. There's no doubt about that.
How about Steve Sanders or Steve Muhammad?
You know what's funny? We saw him compete towards the end of his career, but one of when you talk about all the years, the original IKC at the arena back in the day, one of the coolest things that probably nobody knows is he won Forms Division, and I was right ringside when he did that, and that blows my mind. What an incredible athlete, so strong, so focused. But I wish he would have done that a couple more years so people could understand that, we're all not just one-sided. It's like, he was incredible. The form was beautiful. Matter of fact, I learned that form and I still teach his form to my students. That form he competed with, I use it.
Really? Let's go to another couple of real competitors and actually have had great success in the instructional side too. One of them is deceased, but he's a member of our Hall of Fame, Steve Herring. Steve Herring.
Steve, competitive-wise, I missed out on Steve's competition. But I learned the softer side of Steve as just talking to him and visiting with him. Just the most pleasant human being, soft and warm and gentle. But competitive-wise, our paths never crossed. I never got to see that.
Were you there the day when Mrs. Herring came in to accept on behalf of Steve in the Hall of Fame? I think
yes.
What a lovely
me
lady.
And Patty were there.
Yeah, what a lovely lady. Honest. She was.
She's magnificent.
Yeah, she's just gentle and you know what? A true reflection of Steve's legacy.
She's very, very nice.
How about, let's talk about Huck,
right,
Richard
exactly.
Huck Planis. Did you have any chance to train with him?
I was fortunate in the late 1990s when the seminar circuit kind of hit on the East Coast and the Midwest. I was traveling a lot, back and forth from LA to the East to teach. And I probably taught with him 50 times. And Huck is brilliant. He's brilliant. And he understands the system so complete. He's very low key. He's actually pretty quiet. What Mr. Parker wanted done and what Mr. Parker wanted taught, he's expert. He's an expert, no doubt.
Okay. You spent a lot of time on the East Coast still?
Not so much anymore. From 97 to about 2008 or so. Probably 15 to 30 trips a year.
That's a lot of time, sir. That still is a lot of time.
Anymore, great memories there, though.
Any funny stories you can share with us? What's it like to teach a seminar with one of your seniors? I
was able to teach a seminar. I I hadn't seen one of my instructors for 25 years. And I was able to teach a seminar in South Carolina with him there. And that was Jim Thompson. And he was there and he was able to watch me teach. And the last time he actually saw me, I was just a brown belt. So that was a real important day, you know, to be there. And then, you know, to stand and teach with, you know, guys like Dave, you know, Thompson being with you and you know, sharing the mat, and, you know, they become teachers of their own, and they're all smart and brilliant. And it'd be the same as Mr. Rainey and having Todd Durgan teach. I mean, it would be hard for Mr. Rainey to explain how that feels to have a guy like that you taught become a leader, you know, and teach on his own. I mean, it's really cool.
Nice. And recently, within the last year or so, you had the honor of being recommended and promoted to a senior master of the arts.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that experience. Did you ever think that you would reach that pinnacle in the Kenpo life that you've engaged in?
Oh, no. I think when we all start, just like we wouldn't have said, you know, all these years later, we would be where we're at. We just didn't have that. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And then, you know, we all just kind of do what we do. We love to do what we do. And then, you know, things happen and you get, you know, the suggestion is a mind blower on its own, because you somehow in the back of your mind, you just don't know if you're really worthy of that. It's like, it's a crazy thought. In the days, you know, years prior, you wouldn't think of wearing what Mr. Parker had. I mean, it doesn't register. And then you have discussions with people to make you comfortable. You know, Mr. Sepulveda, Mr. White, you know, Mr. LeBounty. I talked to those fellows, and, you know, you try and weigh it all and get a sense of it all. And then you trust, it's just like when you went up for black yourself, you're trusting the board, you're trusting what they say, that you're worthy to wear what you wear. That's why you kneel down and take the belt, right? So
Absolutely.
In this case, you wrestle with that thought. So you're relying on their words. I remember after I put the belt on, you know, at Mr. White's studio, I mean, you know, Benny Crady's, I mean, you know, he had a lot of very, very nice things to say. So all those type of things help you try and justify in your mind that type of rank. It's crazy.
Do you feel
But you
now
definitely don't think that's going to happen, you know, 40. Go ahead.
do you feel now that you're at this, you're senior in the system, what are you doing to expand your knowledge, grow, and to learn more in the Kenpo system so you can share with others?
For me, I mean, everybody's journey is a little different and everybody's path is different, but the more you teach your students, and when they ask you questions and you actually have to find the answer to those questions, that's how I learn the most. So being with them and you know, helping them on their own little journey probably teaches me the most. So as long as I have them here, I think I'll still grow. I'll still help them grow. I still think our growth rate will be good. but that's probably the number one, how I learned the most.
I see. Let's change it. Let's change the gears. Let's go back a few years. You were approached by Mr. Parker to work with Elvis.
I was probably approached by Mr. Hebler rather than Mr. Parker.
Okay, Mr. Hebler. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So you have to remember that Elvis had come to the studio a few times. So I already knew him. I mean, it's not like I didn't know him. I worked out with him 3 times. So, you know, he knew who I was. I knew who he was. We were very young, you know, very young. 20, 19, somewhere in that zone. And we did get the invitation. Me and Patty both went to Las Vegas. He was performing at the Hilton. You know, he gave us front row seats to the show. And then, you know, after the show, you know, we were supposed to go up and talk to him, which we did. And anybody, yourself included, you know, just more than anybody, that me and Patty's relationship is very special. It's very, very close. The thing is, we knew that when we were 19. It didn't take us 46 years. I mean, we knew right then. It was immediate, right? So a couple things that, you know, that people need to know on that story was, at the time, I didn't have any place to live. I didn't have a home. I mean, I'm living in a car. So when I was with Patty, I was stable. It gave me stability. So having karate students and having her, I was stable. So when he asked me to be, you know, take the last bodyguard spot, it's like, the reality was I didn't even need to think about that because I didn't want to lose what I had. And I knew that would last forever. And in the back of my mind, I just didn't think the bodyguard spot would last forever. It's like, how long could that really go, right? But, you know, he did ask me a question. We were in his, you know, the big office at the penthouse at the Hilton. And what he wanted to know was, he goes, where are you living? I said, I don't have a home. He goes, well, are you going to college? I said, no. He goes, do you have a job? No. Where he was confused at is, he thought, you know, what he told me, he goes, you have nothing to lose. He goes, you got nothing to lose. You're not going to school. You don't got a job. And I can give you a home at Graceland. I told him, I go, but Elvis, there's one thing you're forgetting. I go, the biggest thing I have to lose is out in your dining room. And I'm not going to lose that. And I shook his hand and walked out.
Thank you for sharing such an intimate story. It just shows and reveals the character and the true honesty of who you are and why you're so admired and respected. And what can I say? I just truly admire you and your wife. I remember the one time we were working a show and your wife brought my mom up to the stage, and
Yep.
I've never forgotten that. And that was toward the end of my mom's life. So the Dyes, as far as I'm concerned, are first-class individuals, and we're really honored that you're part of this. And I know why Frank asked for you to be part of that first class. Thank you for sharing that. Really meant a lot. So let's go on to some other things. Paul Dye's Kenpo Karate. Let's talk about that. You have your own school, your own system.
Yep.
You have your new crest. Tell us about it, what it means, so that we all can hear about it.
All right. So the crest is maybe what a lot of the new crests are. Matter of fact, I was still wearing Mr. Parker's crest, you know, all the way up till that time. And you know who gave me the hardest time about my patch was my grandson. He goes, I don't want to take Mr. Parker's patch off. I said, well, then don't take it off. It's okay. I don't mind. He goes, that's going to feel pretty weird. I said, well, if it feels weird to you, what do you think it feels like to me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was the last one to take it off his uniform here. He left it off all. Matter of fact, he just changed it for, at that time period, for Mr. White's event at the studio. That's when Matt changed the patch, right? But the patch is very simplistic, and I wanted it to be just the same thoughts that Mr. Parker had. So you have, the gray matter. It is what it is, but there still are blood stains on my wall here at the garage. So yes, it is what it is. So yeah, the red's in there. You still have the angles on each side to, to represent my new rank. But the patch has, on the east-west lines, it runs through the circle, and there's little dots on the 12-6-3-9 line. There's little dots on the outside. So on the outside of the circle and the crest are these little tiny dots. And each dot is for me, what it is, our journeys have to come to an end, right? It's just, we don't know when we're going to go. You know that. You went through all that. So the little dots represent all the generations that are going to teach later. And those little tiny dots on the outside hopefully will become big dots. And those dots will be their own circle and their own business. So in the simplest situation, that's my patch.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I can relate to that. All the years I wore Mr. Parker's patch until just before Frank died. And then I took it off by choice. And we had created the Hall of Fame, and I sort of was without a patch. And Frank had said to me about his patch, which was the ghost patch. He said, we need to put the color back in it. And I thought, okay, well, the Hall of Fame is going to represent the gold standard. You are part of the gold standard, and the other 9 people that were chosen by Trejo were the gold standard. So that's where we came up with the initial patch I had. And then just recently I took the Hall of Fame tiger and the dragon. I took the globe and I took the flame, was influenced by Trejo, and I put it inside the original crest of Mr. Parker's concept. So I can get what you're saying. And it's admirable that you would share that and develop it. Now it's your path, because Trejo said the same thing to me. It's time for you to take your own path to move forward, because I have done that. And I said, well, you can come along. He goes, no, I'm an old man now. I'm going to watch you. So your students are watching you and taking their lead from you. And that's really exciting that you gave us the insight into that, which is very personal, because if you study Ed Parker's Kenpo Karate system, you develop your own style within his system. And it's obvious that we're all related, but we have a slight different take on it because of body shapes and physical abilities and things like that. So I want to bring in people that love you. Is that okay with you? We're going to open up to answer. Yeah,
nobody.
They all love you right now because they're on the other side of the screen. This is where they can get to you. So I know that everybody's listening, and we're going to go right off the bat with one of my favorite guys. This guy is my #1 man. I always ask at the Hall of Fame to talk, and I think the world of AC Rainey. So AC, how you doing, buddy? Are you there? Unmute and say hello to Senior Master of the Arts, Paul Dye.
Bitchin', what's going on?
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
what are you doing?
Yo, how you doing?
How are you?
Hey,
We're doing fine.
we're having a little, hold up, let me cut this down for a second.
There he is. Let's put him on.
Okay.
Where did you go?
I'm here. I'm still here. I'm just working off 2 computers here.
Okay,
Hey.
we only need one.
No.
Hello, AC. A man of words.
Well, I've got a lot of words. First of all, Paul's the most bitchinest person I've ever known. Oh, hold up. I'm sorry. Okay. Hey, first of all, Paul is one of the most bitchinest people, and probably at the time was one of the most arrogant people I had ever laid my hands on. The only person more bitchiness and arrogant than him was a guy by the name of Rich Hill. And I surrounded myself with all these guys who have all this freaking talent. And it's like, oh my God, people who have talent and they're here, I get to share their lives with them because in their lives, they're teaching me. And Paul, between you and Patty, one of the most influential times of my life was growing up in Kenpo. Back in the day, I can actually name the numbers 72 to 74, and they started less than 72 to 74, but we were stablemates all day, all night, and every day for 24 hours, and that's all we did was Kenpo. You remember that? Working off a lot of Kenpo, that's all we did.
Yep.
Yep.
I remember almost all of them.
Go ahead.
Let's move on and talk to Mr. Bob White. Bob, why don't you unmute yourself and say hello something to Senior Master Dye.
Hello, Paul Dye. How are you?
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right.
Mr. White, why don't you tell a little bit about that day when Paul was promoted to 10th degree black belt?
Oh, it was just a great day. Just, like everything of value, it's a reward for the effort that you put in. And he's been such a major asset to Kenpo Karate for years and years. So we all felt really good about it and very proud that it took place in our studio. Very well deserved.
Do you remember ever seeing
Thank
him at the you remember ever seeing him at the internationals competing?
Well, most definitely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he was just the best at what he was doing. In fact, when I was asked by the Shaolin Temple monk to put together a dream team, and I talked to Paul, and Paul became the captain of the dream team and really choreographed the demonstration that performed at the LA Convention Center. And it was just the wisest choice, and it ended up being a great demonstration as a result of who we had in charge.
Thank you. That was a great day. Great day.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
it was,
White.
Paul, and I thank you.
No, thank you, sir. We appreciate that. I don't mean to jump on you. I appreciate you taking the time to respond. God bless you. Let's move on over here and let's go to the Brashears. Hello to Mr. Dye.
Hey,
Mr.
Corey,
Dye.
how
We're
are
doing
you,
good.
sir?
We're doing good.
Do you have a question or anything you would like to say?
Yeah, how's mommy doing?
She's doing pretty good. She's getting better every day.
Thank you very much
good,
we
good.
appreciate
Good to hear
that.
you guys.
Let's go to one of my favorite guys, one of the all-time. This guy is, I consider him essential to talk to. If you want to know somebody that is just an incredible individual, please take the time out and say hello to our friend, Mr. Carl Totten. Carl, are you there?
I am here.
Hey, say hello to Senior Master Dye.
Hello, Paul.
Hey, Carl.
Good to see you. And I did type in a question for you a little while ago,
How are you, sir?
and it was about your
Good,
dream team. You have one of the most well-known
Yes, sir.
teams in all of the martial arts, actually. And I've seen your team demonstrate, I can't even count how many times. How did you originally get the idea to put together that particular type of dream team and the special type of demonstrations that you folks give?
The dream team was a concept of Mr. White's, and he was asked by the Shaolin Temple to put on a demonstration of Kenpo at their festival at the convention center in Los Angeles. So when Bob called me with the idea, we wanted to make it as diverse as possible. So if we're going to show Mr. Parker's art form, we want to do as much as possible. So by that, I mean, we wanted fighting elements, we wanted form elements, we wanted self-defense elements, we wanted drill elements, we wanted weapon elements. So what I did is I called and got in contact with Kenpoists that kind of specialize in those fields. And here's what I asked of them. I told them when it was going to be. I told them how important it was going to be. And then I told each one of them that you all are so professional. Just come locked and loaded and we'll be ready. The reality is we didn't even practice it until about an hour or two before. We ran through it, and I'm telling you, the people that night were incredible. They were incredible. So I was very, very happy, very pleased. And what I remember the most, Carl, doing what I did, that was when I looked over my shoulder off stage, all of the monks were straining to see what we're doing. And that vision will never leave me. I mean, they were flabbergasted. So it was a good night. Thanks for asking that question. That's a good memory.
Thank you, Carl. Hey, we're looking forward to having Carl Totten back on here soon. I just have to coordinate with him, and we're going to go. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. We're looking forward. I hope you're doing well, Carl. Thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here, Paul.
Now we're going to move over to Senior Master of the Arts, Mr. Chuck Sullivan. Are you there, Chuck? Chuck, are you there?
Paul and both Pauls, Mr. Casey and Mr. Dye. Paul Dye and I have been around for years and years, and sort of in the swirl of things, and we've come in contact very seldom. I did have the opportunity to see your team in a demonstration at one of Brian Hawkins' events, his tournament, and
yes,
I was so impressed, really, so impressed. You guys do one hell of a job on that circuit demonstration. And Paul, Casey, I want to thank you because Mr. Dye and I haven't had a chance to really commiserate much in person, but these shows are so important because I've got to learn so much more about you, and that we haven't had a chance to really spend any time together, and we're gonna have to correct that in the future.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come down.
This gives us that.
We're gonna have to talk.
This gives us a little bit of that, and for that I'm so grateful. So thank you both.
Thank you very much.
I call Chuck all the time, and occasionally he'll take the call. What a great guy. I mean, he has so much to offer. He truly is a real asset to Kenpo. And when he comes on, folks, if you have time to go back and look at some of the prior Zoom meetings I've had with Mr. Sullivan, you'll really enjoy. I mean, there's such a volume of life and experience. And the best thing I can say about Mr. Sullivan, you are a breath of fresh air whenever we talk. Thank you.
As are you, my friend.
God bless you, sir. You have a great night, and say hello to Lady for me, okay?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
let's move on over here and let's go to Derek Hibben. Derek, are you there? Picks. Ralph, are you there, sir?
Hey, Paul, Mr. Casey, Mr. Dye.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
Hey, Ralph, what's up, man? I'm excellent. Yourself?
I'm doing good. God, it's so great to see all of you here today.
I miss you guys.
I miss you too.
You too, man.
So, Mr. Casey, I
So
have
what's it feel like to be my first student, man?
Every time I think about being your first student, I remember a Saturday afternoon when I thought I was good enough to challenge you, when I was 92 pounds and 14 years of age. And I came in pretty hard at you, and you delicately put your foot on my chest, and I only went 1 foot back. So I got up and tried to do it again. You put a little bit more pressure in that kick. And then the third time, you know, knocked me flat on my back, and you stood over me and you said to me, "Well, are you ready to learn now?" And for me, that was a life lesson that I've never forgotten. And it has served me well for many, many decades. You know, Paul, I know I told you this many times, but you directed my life, you guided me through my life, and you're still in my corner every time I need you, and can't tell you how much I love and respect you.
Thank you, Ralph. You know what?
The same. We miss you. We love you for sure, man.
Your comments validate why Mr. Dye teaches. He said it before, and you're a great example. You're a walking proof. Thank you for coming on today. Truly appreciate your comments, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Thank
Be
you,
safe.
Mr. Don.
Let's go on over here down to
Thanks,
Don
Ralph.
Hegel. Don, are you there? Mr. Hegel, are you there? I'm not seeing him. Are you there, sir?
I'm here.
Oh, please say hello to Senior Master of the Arts, excuse me, Paul Dye.
Hey,
Hey, Paul.
how are you, Don?
I'm good. How about you?
How you doing?
I'm good. We're enjoying this.
Life is well. Are you getting out and about now?
Oh, we're getting
Did you
out.
learn a
but
lot?
We're flying low.
We miss
Flying
you guys.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to let everybody know, this is my brother-in-law. This is Patty's brother. This is Don and Ginger.
Why, thank you for coming on. We appreciate that. Let's go on down here and say hello to Earl Parker. Earl, are you there?
Hey, Mr. Dye.
Hey, Earl, how are you?
We're doing great.
Good.
Sunday evening here.
There you go.
I know everyone's talking about a lot of history stuff, and the only like the questions I was kind of coming up with for this had to do more of the practitioner kind of a thing.
Please.
Well, I was thinking a lot about like how the last portion of Ed Parker's system that he had come up with the 24 techniques, you know, per belt rank, and you know how they kind of came up with the extensions on techniques. And I was going to ask you about the development that you took where it came to like becoming an actual martial artist and, you know, applying our skill and coming up with our own movements, how it kind of varied from the textbook written choreographed extension.
Are you asking what's my take on the extensions?
No, it's just how you formulated like becoming a martial artist and like coming up with your own movements, like things that you have us do in classes, like focus change, you know, things of that sort, or two punch, you know, things that we would do other than just doing a drawn out extension.
Well, okay, the way to put it is that as we take a student from the beginning, from when they first start, the reality is we're trying to make them artists. I want them to be their own artists. So at some point, the techniques encourage the student to basically create their movement, create their art, become artists. We're the guides. So come up with drills and exercises to allow the students to better themselves as artists rather than giving you more repetition of sequence of number. Does that make sense?
I think it
Yes, sir.
does. I think he was trying to say there. Thank you very much, Earl, for coming on. Appreciate that. Let's move on over here and go to Todd Durgan. Todd, how you doing, buddy? Can you say hello?
Hello, Mr. Dye. How are you, sir?
Hey guys, how are you folks?
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Obviously, you see my wife, Christy, is with me. So I have just a quick story. I actually first met Mr. Dye at the internationals in '92, I believe it was. I set sail for the internationals from the great state of Washington. Had never been there. Didn't get out much. Then there wasn't much going on here in that time. And Mr. Rainey gives me a list, a very lengthy list of people to say hi to. And none of these people had any idea, I don't think, that he was even alive at the time. So when I run around to say hi to these people, Mr. Dye being one of them, they kind of looked at me like, huh, really? You recall? You probably don't remember that, Mr. Dye. I know Frank was one of them. Mr. Dye was another one.
I do. I do.
Yeah. But so I have a story I'd love for you to share.
I
that I've heard
remember.
a little bit was the laundromat freestyle on the table story with you and Mr. Rainey.
Tell you the story, but we'll deny it ever happened. Okay.
Awesome.
And,
hey, it's a pleasure to see you on here. I look forward to hearing the story.
Thank you, Todd.
So, yeah, remember when I said we worked out 12 to 15 hours a day? We did. So we would work out on curriculum items and studio time. Okay, at 5 o'clock, we hit In-N-Out hamburger. And then we have more training session. So where do you train? Well, you train here, you train there, you go here, you go to the mountains, go to the beach, go to the park. But eventually in wintertime, it gets cold. So where do you go? Well, let's just go to the laundromat. And AC goes, why do we go to the laundromat? It's got lights and it's warm. That's where we're going to go. So we go to the laundromat, and of course we would work out, and is the door of the laundromat. And they're looking at us like, are you washing clothes? No, we're not washing clothes. Well, what are you doing? We're fighting each other. He goes, here in a laundromat? Yeah. Yeah. And they just shook their heads and took off. So, yep, we sparred in the laundromat almost every night.
Lord. Let's go down the hall here and say somebody that's been around a lot. Let's talk to one of my favorite, Robert. How you doing, Robert? Are you there? Are you going to say hello to us all? How you doing?
I'm terrific. How are you?
Good. We want to hear you talk.
Oh, man, I just want to say hello to you and your lovely wife as I try to get more sound and just tell you I think you're a fantastic martial artist. Remember you back in the day when life was rough for us on the circuit. And you were terrific. You were terrific.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
And same as you, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir.
God bless you for coming on. Give my best to your wife. What a lovely lady. Let's go to Lawrence.
Good to see you, Robert.
Let's go down here, and we're going to say right now, let's see if I can get him to come on up. Mr. Zach Carter, are you there, Zach?
Hey, Mr.
Hey,
Dye,
Zach.
how are you doing? Great to see you. I guess I got a question.
Good. You too, sir.
when you're competing
All right.
in a technique division, what do you look for when you're designing your techniques for that competition? How do you design them? Because you're always so dynamic and explosive.
Okay, it kind of starts with the foundation of what we're going to put in it. So first we start with, what do I want in there? And what I mean by that is, weaponry, stance and kicks, and then that kind of morphs into the, let's say, a complete sequence on somebody or people. Once we have that, then we go into film. So we'll film it, and then we look at the film, make correction. Once that's done, then we go into angle and who can see the most. So if you're presenting to, let's say, a tournament and you're presenting to judges, then we need to appropriately fix the sequence so the judges can see the most of what we're trying to show. If we're doing it for an audience, like a big venue, if we're doing it in front of a church, then we still go through the same thing, like where can we put ourselves so the crowd can see the most of what we do. Then it goes into rehearsal, kind of like a Hollywood type of fight sequence. And then once that's done, then it's just mental, the focus of it. And I do practice. So, if I'm going to do something, I still practice over and over and over, trying to be the best at what I do. But that's kind of how I go about it.
Thank you so much. That was greatly helpful, and I'm sure other people will appreciate that. It is great seeing you, and say hello to Patty, and stay safe.
Thank you, Zach. Let's go to Derek Hibben. This time he's back.
I will. Thank you, Zach.
Hello, Derek.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Mr. Dye.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Sir. Good to see you. It's been a long time. Haven't seen you, gosh, since I guess probably the homecoming camp was the last time I saw you.
Well,
no, actually, about 5 years ago you saw him.
Wow.
Wow. Well, yeah. I did see you at the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame.
First year, you took all the photos.
I was there taking photos. But other than that, the last time I saw you actually on the mat, and I remember getting hit by you, was in Pasadena. Dad's doing good. Mom's doing well. Brother's doing good. We're all just trying to get through. Like good. Everybody else, and we hope to see you soon. We know we had some plans, kind of got a wrench thrown in them, but hopefully you and Patty can come down and visit us soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll try and get that done. Yeah, she just now retired, so we'll make a trip. Good to see you. Tell Dad hello.
I will. Thank you, sir.
Let's move right along. Let's go on down here. Natalie Rodriguez, are you there? Natalie, hello to Mr. Dye.
Hi, Mr. Dye. Hi, Mr. Dye.
Hi, Natalie. Hey, both of you.
My sister's here too.
All of you guys. How you doing?
We're good. We're good.
Good. You have a question?
Yeah, we would like to ask, what's your favorite memory of Ed Parker?
Wow. There's so many. Let me tell you. I'll tell you the first one. How's that? The very first one.
Okay.
The first time that we met. So I had been in Kenpo for about 3 weeks. That's it. So in 3 weeks, you don't know hardly anything, and you have one of those kind of goofy looking little white gis on. So I had one of those on, and I was at Dave Hebler's studio in Glendora, and Mr. Parker's coming today. Oh, okay. Yeah, fine. Great. That's cool. So I sit in the office, I take a seat behind the desk, and guess who comes walking down the parking lot? It is Ed Parker. And of course, I hadn't met him before. I don't even know what to say to this guy. I don't even know what to do when he comes to the door. I don't know what to do when he comes in the door. I don't know what to do. So he comes in the door. I get up. And of course, I had kind of long hair down the shoulders and blah, blah, blah. I walk up to him and I stick up my hand and I go, "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Parker." And he goes, "Actually, I already know who you are." I go, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "I already know who you are." He goes, "Matter of fact, we already have your nickname." I go, "A nickname?" He goes, "Yep, it's already in stone." He goes, "It's the Firecracker." He goes, "One of these days," he goes, "I'm going to watch you do karate." He goes, "When I do, I'm going to be a happy guy." And then he walked back to Mr. Hebler's office. That was the first time I met him. And I'm not sure I could sit down for about a half hour after that. I was kind of in shock. And that's the first time.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that, sir. Thank you, Natalie. We appreciate you coming on. We hope you have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Let's move on over. Let's go to South America. Rodolfo, why don't you say hello?
Hello, everybody.
Mr.
Hi,
Dye.
Mr. Dye. Hi, Mr. Dye.
Hey, Rodolfo. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You? Are you good?
We are doing great. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Me too.
Rodolfo, you have a question for Mr. Dye?
Your third preferred techniques.
Favorite technique? Holy cow. Wow.
Well, let me help you. Is that with the red or without the red
I
pants?
have one. I like all easy guy, easy man.
I love you, man.
Crazy guy. Love you, man. Yeah, you know, Rodolfo, just like you, I mean, you're a tremendous Kenpoist for sure. And it's hard for us to pin anything down on one particular move. But what I do like, and I still like doing it on any of them, is just trying to do it as passionate and as hard as I can do it. So it doesn't really matter which one it is. It's just once I'm there and once I'm going to commit and once I'm going to do the technique, I just want to do it as hard and as clean as I can do it, if that makes sense. And it probably does because you're a great, great Kenpoist.
Thank you, Rodolfo. We appreciate you coming on. That was really good of you. Let's move over here, and I know this lady. Hello, Kelly. How you doing, honey?
Hi, how are you, sir? Good, how are you?
Yeah, one of our 2019 Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame members. And in just a little bit, we're going to have the women of Kenpo. So, Kelly, say hello, Mr. Dye.
Hi, Mr. Dye, how are you?
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Good, doing good.
Kelly, you got a question or a comment for Mr. Dye?
Good. It's good to see you.
You see you too. Question for you. What made you want to join martial arts?
Well, I really didn't want to join martial arts. I mean, it wasn't like going around looking for a studio or looking to join karate at all. I just was being kind of a nice guy and walking this girl to a gymnasium at college. And, you know, I poked my head in the gym and looked in a little bit further, and I got grabbed by one of the teachers, and he just forced me to go in there. And then he said, "Line up." I go, "Line up for what?" He goes, "You're in the class now." It's like, what's that mean? He goes, "Just be quiet and get in line." It's like, wow. And then Mr. Hebler walked up to me and he says, "Hey," he goes, "stick out your arm." He goes, "I'm going to break it." I go, "What's that mean?" He goes, "Just stick out your arm, you'll find out." So when I stuck it out, he almost broke it. Right? So it's like, I didn't know what that was, but I wanted to know how to do that. It's like, how do you do that? He goes, "Well, I'll show you." And he took my other arm and almost broke that one. It was like, I'm in. I'm good. I'm in. So once I felt that, I was good to go. There
Thank
have
you,
it.
Kelly. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We hope you have a great weekend. Let's go over to somebody that we all know. There we go. Hulk Hogan's stand-in.
Hulk Hogan.
More like Bulk Hogan than Hulk Hogan.
That's it.
Hey, so
and the best part about it, he's wearing a red shirt.
That's right. Dedication to my instructor. Hey, I had to tell you two things. One that I'd like to share with everybody that some people may not know. That Mr. Dye was basically unbeatable in the self-defense division. And he has won every decade now. He just won a couple of years ago a grand championship in an international tournament for self-defense. So he, as far as that I know of, he's the only one who has ever done that before. Also, I had one other little quick story to share, is that when I got promoted to my black belt in 1984, there was a certain technique that Mr. Dye didn't show me. And so I was always worried about, well, what if they call it? He said, don't worry. He said, what if they call it? He says, don't worry about it. Well, Mr. Trejo was running the test in front of Mr. Parker. I was testing for my black, and they called the technique out. Everyone did the technique, and I just stood there with another black belt of ours, or a brown belt at the time. And so Mr. Parker leaned over and looked at Mr. Trejo and said, Mr. Trejo, call it again. Called it out again. We stood there. Well, then Mr. Parker asked, the question, didn't you hear the technique? And of course, I had to be the one to answer. And I said, yes, sir, we did. He said, why didn't you do the technique? I said, we were not taught this technique. And he says, who's your instructor? Mr. Dye pops up. He goes, sir, I'm their instructor. He goes, Mr. Dye. He goes, did you not teach him this technique? He said, no, sir, I did not. He says, well, why didn't you teach him that technique? He goes, sir, I don't like that technique. And everyone went, oh, wow. And so the test was over. I got promoted. And right at the end, with everyone standing there, Mr. Parker goes, Mr. Dye, you've been promoted to your 3rd degree black. Amazing that day. It was amazing. And so that's one of my many, many fond memories, that being the fortunate person that I am, to have the #1 instructor for me that I could ever ask for. Love you, Mr. Dye.
You're a real asset to Paul Dye. You truly are one of the most
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Genuine individuals, you and your wife, tremendous people, and your loyalty to Paul Dye and Patty is unquestionable, and it's only exceeded by the fact that you're just a good human being. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope we'll see you more often. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Dave Thompson is also a member of the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame, and we are so saddened that you couldn't be there that day, but your wife did it so eloquently to accept on behalf, and we do look forward to seeing you at the next dinner, because you're going to be first in line when it comes to buffet. Just don't wear red pants. Thank you so much. Let's move over to one of my favorite guys. Hey, Ken Johnson, how you doing, buddy? Why don't you say hello to everybody? We're going to unmute you. You're unmuted. Hello, Kenny.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going. You.
Good to see you.
Hey, man.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
We are doing very well, Ken. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm surviving.
We are all healthy and above the grass. We are good.
Yeah, I hear you.
Good.
Good plan. I always, I got a lot out of your intensity, Paul. I remember how intense you were no matter what you did, whether you were playing video games or kicking somebody's ass. I always thought it was great. I got a lot out of that. I took some of that on myself a little bit.
You sure did. You're awesome Kenpoist yourself, my friend. You're amazing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Friday nights, this is the only time that I was in the line, and Kenny said, no, Casey, you're not in front of me, you're behind me. I never noticed I was getting the gift, and the person that was behind me was moaning and groaning, going, oh no, I got to stand in front of Ken Johnson. Boy, oh boy, it's so good to see you. It's so sad to think that Roger's not here anymore, physically, but his presence was obviously felt by so many. I was really honored to know that he, Mr. Faria, you, Mr. Dye, were all there in '81 when we sweated out on that same mat, and it was just an honor. Thank you so much for coming down here today and really honoring Mr. Dye with your presence. You're
Good to see you, Kenny.
It's good to see you guys. Good to see you, Paul.
You too, man.
Let's finally go to one more person that we have here, if he is here, and that is Dennis Knatzer. Are you there, Dennis? Yay, there you are. Well, look at there, the dragon with his dragon. Say hello to Mr. Dye.
Hey, Mr. Dye, how you doing, sir?
Hey, nice dragon, man. What's up?
That's my little buddy Drago. It just
That's cool.
Came in the mail
That's
for me
cool.
today, so kind of a neat little guy.
Oh my God. That's cool.
So
Yeah, he's cool looking.
he wanted to be online with me.
Nice. There you go.
Not my last
Nice.
time I remember being around you was at the I believe it was the homecoming. To my recollection, it was either that or it was over in Pasadena one time. So that was geez, I don't know, 91 maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it was
believe so.
it was quite a while back. So good to see that you're doing well.
A long time ago. You too. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Say hi to Patty for me. So
I
haven't
will.
seen her in a while. Look forward to seeing her on the Women's Hall of Fame. So she's going to be on there. That'll be
Couple
interesting to see. So some good insights to
couple
some of your
weeks.
history and some of your fun stories.
Thank you. We'll have to share stories together one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knatzer. We appreciate that. You know, we're going to go up right here. I just want to say, before we close out, I want to say, Mr. Dye, with all due respect, you're one of the most incredible people I know. I've known you for almost 40 years, I would think. Close to that, maybe longer. And you know what? You've always walked the walk. You have integrity and a real asset to Kenpo. Thank you so much for taking time to come here, and I'll pay for this later. But you know what? Really, God bless you, sir. You got a wonderful family. We're honored to know you, and that's all I can say right now. So let's get everybody. I'm going to unmute everybody, and right now, why don't you all say we're going to go to a gallery view, and there's a lot of people here, Mr. Dye. Why don't we all say goodbye to Mr. Dye? Thank you very much on behalf of the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame. You all say goodbye, and we're going to close.
Mr. Dye, great seeing you.
Bye, Mr. and Mrs. Bitchin.
Bye. Take care, Paul.
Bye, Paul.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
Don. Bye, Donnie.